A very good morning, dear students. Children, we shall continue with the explanation of the chapter Discovering Toot, the saga continues. I have already told you the significance of the title, and children, please pay attention because it can come as a question in the examination. Now, the title, it is written in present continuous. Pay attention to the word discovering Toot. It is written in present continuous. What does it mean? An action that started in the past and is still in the process. It has not come to an end. I have already told you that the reason behind the death of King Toot is still not clear. Scientists are investigating the reason behind his death, the manner in which he died. Hence the title Discovering Toot. The saga continues is in present, simple present. The long story still continues. Okay, so this is the significance of the title. The first paragraph, as you can see in the slide, children, I have already explained to you that an angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Toot was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery. Now, the ancient Egyptians, children, they believed in resurrection, that is rising of the dead on the judgment day. They believed there is life after death. And when their kings or the pharaohs, they died, they buried all the articles of everyday use along with the precious belongings. Now, because King Toot was a king, a pharaoh, a boy pharaoh, all his valuables, his gold, were buried along with him. He belonged to a royal family. Also, in order to protect their dead and to prevent the robbers from damaging or showing disrespect to the royal burials, children, the Egyptians, they used to invoke a curse. Now, that curse was either it would bring about a death or misfortune would fall upon anyone who disturbed the dead. So this was a belief that they had associated with the dead. Now I told you that the robbers and enemies from damaging or showing respect. Another word to show damage or disrespect could be desecrating. Please write down this word, children. It's a new word for you all. Desecrating. 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 So the belief was that anybody who would show disrespect or would try to damage or would try to steal these valuables, these royal burials, a curse would befall them. And what could it be? It could either be a misfortune or death. So this was the belief that they had associated. Now it was for the very first time in the modern world that the most famous mummy was to undergo a CT scan. Why? To probe the lingering medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler. Hence the title. Okay, children, see, associate it. So for the first time, the modern technology, the modern method would be used to probe the hanging medical mysteries that shrouded the mysterious death of the ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. So just imagine that till date we don't know the reason behind his death, that how did he die. And this you will be writing as the significance. This is the significance of the title, that why is it written in present continuous. So I have already done this first paragraph with you, children. Let me move on to the next paragraph now. The second paragraph, children, on page 23. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped rock-cut tomb some 26 feet underground to pay their respects. Excuse me. Now I have told you this also, children, that it is a tourist spot, and the tourists had gathered there to visit the tomb and to pay their respects. They gazed at the murals. Murals over here refer to the paintings, children, on the walls of the burial chamber, and peered. Please underline the word peered. Peered means to look closely at Toots' gilded face. Gilded means covered with thin layer of gold. Okay, so it was gilded. The most striking feature of this mummy shaped outer coffin lid. Now the coffin was in the shape, the entire coffin was in the shape of the mummy, children. Now what is mummy, what is mummification, we have already watched the video. It is already shared in the group. If you have not watched it, please watch it. So all these terms will get you will be able to understand these terms in a much better way, children. So some tourists, they were reading from the guidebooks in a whisper. And why were they whispering? Because they did not want to disturb King Tut in his sleep. Others, they stood silently, perhaps pondering Tut's untimely death. Pondering, they were thinking about. Pondering means to think deeply. They were thinking about Tut's untimely death in his late teens. Children, why untimely death? Because he died at a very young age. He became a pharaoh at a raw age of 19, and he died at a very young age, as a teenager. At the age of 18, he died. Okay, so they were untimely death. Hence, it was an untimely death in his late teens. Or wondering with a shiver if the pharaoh's curse, death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him was really true. Okay, I talked about the curse that was associated with anybody who disturbed the sleep. So they were feeling afraid that we have entered, but what if we are struck with that misfortune, or what if our death, it brings about our death. So they were really feeling afraid about it. Okay, now let us move on to the next slide, children. The third paragraph now, children. The mummy is in a very bad shape because of what Carter did in the 1920s, said Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. Children, antiquities over here, it's a department that studies the past, the historical or the ancient remnants. Remnants means the remains. So King Tut's mummified body was also an ancient remnant. So Zahi Hawass, he told that in 1920s also an effort was made to pull out Tut's body, but it was done in a very rustic manner, in a very rough manner by Carter. And hence the condition of the mummy is very bad, because that time the technology was not so advanced, the methods were very rustic, were very rough, old fashioned, and now the technology, the methods are all very modern. Hence the comment that the mummy is in a very bad condition because of what Carter did in the 1920s. Secretary General, okay, as he leaned over the body for a long first look. So Zahi Hawass, he was inspecting the body of Tut. Carter Howard Carter, that is, was the British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. Now, Carter had also searched for the tomb. He knew about it. He knew about this practice of the Egyptians, and he had made an effort to search for that tomb, but in futile. Futile means it was in vain. Okay. Its contents, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. Now finally, when he found the tomb, all its contents, they were ransacked. They were taken out very quickly. Hastily means, they were very quickly, they were all emptied, ransacked. They were all emptied in antiquity. Antiquity over here means, children, work of art from the past is known as antiquity. So hastily ransacked in antiquity was surprisingly complete. So no, it wasn't stolen by the robbers. nor did anybody enter the tomb. So this was the proof that all the contents, they were intact. Nothing was stolen, nothing was destroyed. The work from the past was intact. They were surprisingly complete. Please underline. They remain the richest royal collection ever found. Please keep underlining, very important. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of the pharaoh's legend, about his story, rich legend. Okay. Stunning artifacts in gold. Artifacts, please underline, children. Objects of history is known as artifacts. Objects of history, they are known as artifacts, and they were in gold. Their eternal brilliance meant to guarantee resurrection. Okay, now because they were still shining, brilliantly shining, it assured resurrection. What does it mean? That it guaranteed that the Pharaoh would rise from his death on the judgment day. Caused a sensation at the time of the discovery. So this was a belief associated that if all the artifacts were still shining in that brilliant condition, it would guarantee resurrection. And this caused a sensation, a hustle and bustle at the time of discovery, and still get the most attention. And even today, children, it's the point of attention, attraction. But Tut was also buried with everyday things he would want in the afterlife. But Tut, he was buried with those articles in the afterlife. Whatever articles he used in his present life, children, it was a belief that they would be required in the afterlife too. So all those articles were buried along with the dead body. And what were they? Board games, a bronze razor, linen garments, undergarments, cases of food and wine. So all this was buried along with the body, the mummified body of King Tut. We shall now be moving on to the next paragraph. The third paragraph, children. After months of carefully recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures, Carter began investigating his 3 nested coffins. Children, now after months of carefully recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures. Now funerary treasures, I have already told you what does it mean. Funerary treasures are the all those items that were suitable for burial. So those were the funerary treasures. All the articles and all the valuables that were buried along with the boy pharaoh's body. Carter began investigating his 3 nested coffins. Children, nested coffins, please underline. What does it mean? Fit into another, fit one into another. So it was a 3-layered coffin. Now I think I have a video on the structure of Tut's coffin. I shall be sharing that with you all, so you can watch it and you can have an idea of how the coffin was. Now they wanted to really preserve the body, and hence they took utmost care in developing its structure also. So it was 3 nested coffins. Also children, one more point I would like to keep here. The questions based on this chapter would be situational. Chapter is also situational. That means you have to learn certain portions by heart and you have to produce the same facts while writing your answer. No new information, exactly the same information you will be writing in your answer, because the question will be situational. Now this that explain the structure of King Tut's coffin, of course you have to write whatever you are reading, and I will be sharing the video also, so you can pick up some points from there also. As a 2-marker question this can come, and it is important from examination point of view. Okay, let us continue. Opening the first, he found a shroud adorned with garlands of willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals and cornflowers, the faded evidence of a burial in the month of March or April. Children, now when the first coffin was opened, when the first layer of the coffin was opened, what did they find? A shroud. Shroud means a covering, adorned with garlands. Garlands are the flower garlands of willow and olive leaves. Children, you know, some leaves and flowers that are mentioned here in this sentence are used for adorning the dead. These are the willow, the olive, the celery, lotus, cornflower. Okay, they are used to adorn the dead. And it was evidence, faded evidence. Faded evidence means that it was a very faint evidence that the burial had taken place in the month of March or April. This was the proof, because children, these flowers grow in the month of, blossom in the month of March or April. So it was evidence, it was proof that the burial had taken place in the month of March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, though he ran into trouble, but when he finally reached the mummy in the innermost compartment, there was some trouble. He was in a fix. And what was the trouble? The ritual resins. Children, in the process of mummification, we saw that certain oils, balms and resins were used. Now, what do you understand by the word resins? Please underline. These are, children, sticky organic substances which are exuded from some trees, which are taken from the trees. So these are sticky organic substances. Now, because, and hence the word resin, something that sticks, something that is sticky. Now, because it was sticky in nature, what had happened? It had become hard, and as a result, cementing toot to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. So the whole mummy, it had got hardened and it had stuck to the solid gold coffin. No amount of legitimate force could move them. Carter wrote later. What was to be done? They had exerted a lot of force. Legitimate means physical force they had applied, but still they could not move it. So whatever amount of physical force they had applied to move it, it was all in vain, and Carter was in big trouble. He wrote in vain. What was to be done? So here there was a question mark to their next step, that what could be done. Children, I shall end my video lesson of today here. Please go through the videos, write down the word meanings in your notebook and submit your assignment timely. Thank you and have a good day.